Revealed, how one heartwarming dance from his maid transformed a cold billionaire's life forever. Daniel Blake was a name that echoed through the extravagant halls of Chicago's elite. A 42-year-old billionaire who spun tech startups into golden opportunities, he lived in a lavish penthouse surrounded by glass and steel. But all that wealth, a vast fortress of success, couldn't shield him from the haunting memories of his father, a war hero who wore his sacrifices like an invisible cloak. Every gleaming skyscraper reminded him of the warmth of family he had lost. Loneliness dripped from every corner, casting shadows in a home that felt more like a prison than a sanctuary. One evening, amidst the sparkling chandeliers and gleaming floors, a humble maid named Clara caught his eye. As she mopped the marble floors, her posture was weary, but her spirit remained fierce. She had an infectious smile that could brighten the gloomiest of days. In the chaos of her chores, she began to dance, an impromptu burst of joy that spun her away from burden and into grace. Daniel paused, his heart tightening as memories of carefree family gatherings played in his mind. Laughter echoed in his ears, memories so vivid that the laughter seemed to whirl around him. For the first time in years, he felt a flicker of warmth pierce through the cold. Their connection blossomed slowly, from shy introductions to deep conversations over the hum of vacuums and chatter of busy staff. Clara spoke of her little girl, her dreams of a better life, and her frantic battle against the shadows of economic struggle. In those moments, Daniel caught glimpses of strength and resilience that reminded him of his father. Every word she spoke felt like a window into another world, where wealth and despair danced precariously in a balance he had never noticed. But dark clouds loomed ahead. News broke out about a scandal at the company Clara worked for, rippling through the community and threatening her job. The once bright spark of hope dimmed as the reality of her situation weighed heavily upon her shoulders. Torn between loyalty to Clara and his sheltered life, Daniel felt like a puppet caught in a web of strings made from privilege and guilt. He devised a plan to save her job without revealing who he was, so she wouldn't face judgment for relying on him. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As Clara rallied her community for a fundraiser, Daniel's heart raced. The stakes felt overwhelming, the weight of numerous lives hanging in the balance brought on the pressure. He wanted so desperately to help but felt paralyzed by the chasm their disparate lives had formed. Just as he gathered the courage to step through the door of the event, everything shifted. Clara's smile radiated across the room, casting light on shadows that had long engulfed his heart. As the music began and the crowd gathered, Daniel stood on the threshold, face flushed with doubt and anticipation. Would he step into the light with Clara and reveal who he truly was? Or would he remain hidden behind the gilded walls of his own making, continuing a life that felt like a facade? The cork popped from a champagne bottle, sending a thrill through the air. The atmosphere thickened with hope and anticipation, but would he choose connection or solitude? Would he find the courage to embrace this unexpected joy? The night pulsed with uncertainty, setting the stage for a life-altering decision that lay just ahead. Daniel's heart pounded in his chest as he watched Clara move gracefully among the crowd. Every smile she offered felt like a beacon pulling him closer, urging him to step away from the shadows of his penthouse life. He could feel her laughter tinkling in the air, vibrant and alive, and in that moment, it became clear to him, he didn't just want to be a spectator anymore. Taking a breath, he pushed through the guests surrounding him, finding his way to the dance floor. The dim lighting flickered, casting a soft glow that seemed to dance along with the upbeat rhythm filling the room. Clara stood at the center, her joy radiating as she interacted with the people, but his approach made her stop. Their eyes locked. A silence fell, a kind of stillness that felt like it belonged only to them. "Daniel! You came!" Clara exclaimed, her face lighting up with surprise and delight. The hope sparkling in her eyes cut through the uncertainty that had clouded his mind moments ago. He didn't reply with words. Instead, he offered his hand, a simple gesture of invitation. The music swelled around them, wrapping each beat in a comforting embrace. Before he knew it, Daniel found himself swept into the rhythm beside her. They danced, two worlds colliding in the vibrant space of shared laughter and stolen glances. Every spin he took with Clara felt liberating, peeling away the layers he had built around himself through the years. Memories of his father's comforting presence melded with the warmth emanating from Clara, filling the empty spaces he had felt for so long. The dance floor became a refuge where vulnerability was met with acceptance. It was exhilarating and terrifying all at once. As the music transitioned into a slower melody, he pulled Clara closer. Her warmth felt electric against him, tingling through the stark loneliness that had wrapped him in its grip for too long. "I've been meaning to tell you," he said as the rhythm softened, "you inspire me." Clara gazed up at him, her eyes glistening. I didn't know I could do that." "Sometimes, it takes someone to see the light in us before we can see it ourselves," he replied, his voice steady, yet filled with emotion. But as their moment of connection deepened, Clara's expression shifted. There was a flicker of concern, a reminder of the storm that loomed over her life. "Daniel, I don't know what will happen with the fundraiser, I just hope it helps us." Her words pierced through his heart. He had dreamt of a remedy to her pain, longing to lift her burden, yet the realm of their lives felt too vast. Could he truly reach across that divide? "Whatever happens, you're not alone," he promised, the weight of those words settling on his heart. Just then, a commotion erupted at the back of the room, pulling the attention of the crowd. Clara's gaze shifted as frowns broke across faces nearby, whispers of distress buzzing in the air. The atmosphere instantly darkened. "What's happening?" Clara asked, stepping back slightly. Daniel's eyes widened as he caught wind of the unfolding scene. A group of men was advancing, their expressions stormy and threatening. The hairs on the back of his neck bristled. "Stay close," he instructed, ready to shield her from whatever turmoil was approaching. In the midst of rising tensions and uncertain futures, Daniel felt a powerful resolve building inside him. This was the moment that would define everything they had shared. But could he truly protect Clara and everything they'd built in such a short time? As the confrontation escalated, he realized he was no longer just a cold billionaire trapped in his world, he was a man, a partner determined to fight for what mattered most. He took a deep breath, steeling himself for what lay ahead. Would he have what it took to confront the shadows threatening to dismantle the light that had rekindled his heart? The air crackled with anticipation, foreshadowing a clash that would change everything, not just for him, but for Clara, too. Daniel's heart raced as he pulled Clara close, glancing over her shoulder at the growing tension behind them. The laughter and music faded into muffled sounds, overshadowed by the threatening shuffle of boots approaching. His jaw tightened, resolve coursing through him. He wouldn't let anyone disrupt this moment, this fragile connection he was beginning to form with Clara. "Stay behind me," he whispered, feeling the warmth of her body pressed against his. The world fell away, just the two of them in a bubble amidst the chaos. Clara nodded, eyes wide yet unwavering, reflecting a mix of fear and determination. Something about her strength ignited a flicker of courage within him. The men advancing toward them wore menacing expressions. They cut through the celebration like a knife, their presence instilling a sense of impending dread. "Daniel," Clara's voice was softer now. "What are we going to do?" His mind raced, strategizing, panicking. The growing crowd began to murmur, shifting restlessly. People sought answers to an unfolding drama that they could sense but hadn't yet grasped. "Just trust me," he replied, keeping his focus on the approaching men. His instincts took over. Intimidation was not an option. He would face them head-on, unyielding. As the group stopped a few feet away, Daniel scanned their faces. He recognized one of them, Ryan, a known local thug whose grip on the neighborhood had grown notorious. "You think you can just waltz in here, Daniel?" Ryan sneered, his lip curling derisively. You think money can buy you out of anything? The accusation hit like a punch to the gut. Daniel held his ground, authoritative anger bubbling to the surface. I'm not here for you, Ryan. I'm here for Clara and everyone who has struggled against thugs like you. Clara squeezed his hand, a lifeline amidst the storm. He turned to her, offering a quick, reassuring smile. She had inspired him to step away from the shadows, and he wouldn't let her down now. Don't be naive, Daniel, Ryan snapped, taking a threatening step closer. This isn't just about you, or that little fundraiser of yours. An uneasy silence settled around them, as whispers of fear and doubt began to ripple through the crowd. But Daniel could feel Clara's steady heartbeat resonating against his palm. He was no longer just protecting himself. He was protecting them both, and he couldn't show weakness. Whatever happens here tonight, he said, his voice rising, challenging, it stops with me. I won't let you manipulate people out of their livelihoods any longer. The crowd began to murmur, a wave of support weaving through them, as if they were all awakening to the reality of what was happening. Clara stood beside him, fear transforming into a fierce light in her eyes. Together they were not just individuals, but a united front. Ryan's face twisted in anger, but behind it, a flicker of uncertainty danced in his eyes. Isolation had been Daniel's life choice before this moment, now, it fueled his determination. Back down or face the consequences, he continued, feeling the strength of the crowd build behind him. Suddenly, Clara stepped forward, taking hold of Daniel's arm. You should be afraid. Not of Daniel, but of the people who will stand together when their dignity is at risk. This isn't just a party, it's a community. Caught off guard by her strength, Ryan hesitated, looking from Clara to Daniel, weighing his options. The crowd leaned in closer, sensing that the tide might be turning. Yet, before he could respond, another voice cut through, a voice that sent chills down Daniel's spine. What is going on here? A figure appeared, stepping out of the shadows. Daniel's heart sank as he was met with the sharp gaze of the police chief, her presence bringing a mix of dread and relief. Can anyone explain why there's trouble brewing at my event? She demanded. The atmosphere shifted suddenly, drawing the people's attention to new possibilities. Daniel stood taller, feeling the balance of power shift in their favor. This moment could be pivotal, but how would it play out? As they all held their breath, waiting for the chief's next words, one question loomed large: would this confrontation strengthen their community or break them apart forever? The police chief's presence felt like a storm cloud hovering over the confrontation. Daniel's heart hammered wildly against his ribcage. Clara's grip tightened around his arm, and he could feel her anxiety intertwining with his own. Listen carefully, the chief said, her voice firm yet not aggressive. There's too much at stake here. We need to hear both sides. Ryan glanced at his crew, a flicker of uncertainty playing across his face. For a moment, he looked less like a predator and more like a boy caught in a wrong place at the wrong time. But the dark inclination in his smirk still loomed large. Don't threaten me with that badge, Chief, he spat. You think these people care enough to stand up? You think they'll really fight for each other? The crowd murmured, uncertainty threading through them like a whispering wind. Daniel felt the unease. They defaced fear too long. Clara took a deep breath as if she was ready to unveil another wave of strength. Ryan, she called, her voice steady and powerful, you underestimate them. They are tired of living in fear. They're ready to push back. Her words threw Ryan off balance. This wasn't the response he expected. The crowd responded with a soft chorus of agreement, inching closer, their sense of unity growing palpable. The chief nodded, acknowledging Clara. You're right. But we need to do this the right way. Let us not create more chaos tonight. Daniel could see it in the crowd. They were restless, ready for action but worried they'd tip the scales of safety. He leaned closer to Clara, their faces nearly touching. What if this ends badly? He breathed, his voice trembling. I don't know, she admitted, her eyes reflecting the flickering lights of the surrounding party, but we need to show them that we won't back down. Just then, a voice rose from the crowd, a familiar face standing tall. It was Old Man Bennett, a longtime resident whose presence had always been a source of wisdom and comfort. I've lived here all my life, Ryan. I've seen you bully our people enough. We deserve peace. His voice resonated through the air like a rallying cry, pulling others in. With a powerful shout of agreement, more voices began to join his. We demand respect. Shouted one woman. Enough is enough. Roared another. The energy in the atmosphere changed dramatically, shifting from fear to defiance. Clara beamed at Daniel as strength surged through her. He felt it, too, the warmth spreading through the crowd. Could they actually stand together against their oppressor? Ryan's bravado deflated as he looked around, scanning the faces of people he demanipulated for far too long. Anger surrendered to disbelief, and for the first time, he seemed unsure of himself in this sea of unity. Fighting each other will just get you more pain, more regret, he barked, but his voice lacked conviction. The crowd had transformed, their spirit growing stronger with each passing moment. Maybe we've been fighting the wrong battle, Daniel interjected, feeling Clara's unwavering support by his side. Instead of dividing us, you've united us, Ryan. The chief stepped forward, asserting her presence with authority. This ends now. No more intimidation tactics. This community is taking a stand tonight. As tension simmered, one sharp question rang through the air. What'll happen if Ryan doesn't back down? Someone in the crowd asked, taking a step forward, eyes narrowed and defiant. Daniel caught Clara's breath hitch, and for a brief moment, time seemed to stand still. They were on the brink. Little did anyone know, the real battle wasn't just against Ryan, it was about defining their identity, their boundaries, and their freedom. Clara squeezed Daniel's hand tighter, determination ignited in her gaze. Everything hung in balance. Would this pivotal moment lead to the liberation they sought, or another chapter of fear? As the chief's gaze met Daniel's, a silent question passed between them: how far were they willing to go for their freedom? And just as the reality of their struggle sat heavy in the air, a new figure emerged from the shadows, an unexpected player in this escalating game. The question lingered, pulsating in their minds: who would emerge as the ultimate ally in their fight? A figure stepped forward from the dimly lit shadows, cutting through the heavy atmosphere like a knife. Daniel squinted, trying to make out who it was. As the light cast upon this newcomer, his breath caught in his throat. It was Natalia, the waitress from the diner he frequented, her usual cheerful demeanor now replaced with an intensity he had never seen before. Ryan! She shouted, her voice slicing through the murmurs. The crowd turned, all eyes on her, the tension thickening like fog. You say these people don't care? You're wrong. Clara's grip on Daniel's arm loosened, a mix of surprise and curiosity flooding her eyes. Ryan's expression shifted slightly, caught off guard by Natalia's sudden fiery resolve. Enough is enough. Natalia pressed on, stepping closer to the front, emboldened by the strength of the gathered community. We're not afraid of you anymore. You think no one notices how you bully us? How you sow fear? We won't stand by while you trample on our lives. The crowd erupted with applause and cheers, reviving their momentum. Clara beamed at Daniel, he could feel pride swelling in his chest for Natalia's bravery. The air was electric, charged with the kind of energy that felt almost tangible. You don't know what you're dealing with, Ryan sneered, forcing a grin onto his face that looked more like a grimace. I've got my crew, and they won't back down. Your crew? Natalia shot back, her voice unwavering. You mean the thugs you pay to enforce your pain? They're scared too. They see you for what you are, and they're tired of following a coward. Ryan faltered, and in that moment, the crowd sensed weakness. The tide had turned. They surged forward, fingers pointing, voices raised, emboldened by Natalia's words. "Let us show him." Someone shouted, echoing the feelings swirling within them. "Fight back." Another chimed in, and the crowd began to chant, a unified rhythm beating in time. Daniel felt Clara's presence beside him, steady and fierce. "This is it, Daniel," she whispered, her confidence igniting a spark in him. "They're ready. We have to lead them. It's now or never." He nodded, heart racing. "Right. Together. We can do this." But deep down, he worried. What if it wasn't enough? Was it wise to go head-to-head with someone like Ryan? The shadows of doubt slipped in, tugging at the edges of his determination. The chief stepped back, tipped off by the surging emotions, letting Clara and Daniel take charge. More voices joined the growing chorus of defiance. "I see you all, and I admire your courage." Daniel called out, trying to project strength as he stood tall. "Let us show Ryan we are not afraid anymore. We've stood too long in the shadows, silent witnesses to our fears. No more." The crowd responded like an orchestra tuning for a grand performance, voices melding as they chanted and echoed his words back to him. It was a wave rolling forward, a combined spirit of fighting back against years of intimidation, and soon they became more than individuals, they were a collective heart beating for change. As the tension mounted, Ryan's crew shifted uneasily, glancing at their leader for direction. For the first time, doubt flickered in Ryan's eyes. But before his choice could crystallize, the sound of sirens pierced through the night, cutting through the passionate cries of the crowd. "What now?" Clara murmured, anxious energy radiating from her. Daniel felt the knot of uncertainty tighten as everyone turned toward the noise. Was help arriving, or was their show of strength about to get crushed under the weight of the law? As the police vehicles surged in, lights flashing, Daniel's heart raced again. The turning point of their struggle loomed inevitable. Would the police stand beside the people, or merely return them to silence? No matter the answer, the confrontation was escalating, and an indelible question loomed large, in the face of this rising storm, who would emerge victorious in defining the future of their community? The sirens wailed louder, drowning out the chants of defiance. Daniel's pulse quickened as his gaze darted between the police vehicles rolling in and the crowd's charged energy. The fear was palpable, an undercurrent swirling amongst them. Clara squeezed his hand, a reassuring gesture against the uncertainty that hung thick in the air. "What do we do?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. He took a deep breath, steadying his racing heart. "We stand our ground," he said firmly, but even as the words left his lips, doubt clouded his resolve. Natalia, still at the forefront, seemed to sense the shift in atmosphere. She raised her voice once more, beckoning the crowd's attention. "Stay with me. They can't intimidate us if we stay united." The crowd rallied behind her, fists raised, their collective spirit soaring even higher. The police officers, stepping out of their vehicles, exchanged glances as they approached the scene. Some wore expressions of concern, while others looked skeptical, ready to carry on with their mundane duties. "Form a line. We need to make a statement," Ryan shouted. His bravado had returned, heightened by the arrival of the law. Daniel could see his crew straightening, injecting new confidence into Ryan's already volatile demeanor. "What is he doing?" Clara whispered, fear lacing her words. Trying to solidify his control, Daniel replied, watching as Ryan gestured toward the police. "He thinks if he can manipulate them, he can suppress us again." Suddenly, an officer stepped forward, raising his hands to call for calm. "Hey! Everyone, please, we need some order here." His tone was firm, a clear command. "Order!" One of the crowd members yelled back. Where was order when he was terrorizing us for years? The atmosphere crackled, a clash of voices igniting confusion. Daniel felt the tension in the air shifting again, wrapping itself around him like a heavy fog. The police were here, but would they align with the community or with Ryan? Listen up. Another officer barked, attempting to regain control. We need you all to disperse. This isn't a safe situation. Disperse? Daniel's voice rose above the rest as he stepped forward, compelled by the weight of collective anger. We're not going anywhere. We're tired of being bullied. The crowd erupted in support, a wave of cheers and claps washing over him. He felt the energy rise, a surge of determination flooding through him. But then, the cops shifted, their expressions stern, resolving to clear the area. This is not how it's going to end, Clara said beside him, her eyes bright with resolve. They can't silence us now. We finally have the strength. As if propelled by some unseen force, the chant escalated again, louder and more insistent. They were not backing down, they were amplifying their message. It was beyond courage now, it was a statement of their lives, their rights. Ryan stepped forward, his confidence faltering as he scanned the fearsome faces around him. The crowd was forming a shield, and Daniel saw opportunity dancing in their defiance. Ryan! He shouted, his voice slicing through the noise. You're outnumbered. Step back. This ends tonight. For an agonizing moment, it seemed Ryan might falter completely, but then the anger surged back, a last-ditch effort to maintain control. You don't know who you're messing with, Ryan growled, his voice dripping with malice. This won't end well for anyone. But before anyone could react, a police officer took a step toward Ryan. As words exchanged under hushed breaths gathered momentum, Daniel focused on the faces in the crowd, their hopes, their fears, their determination. He was about to shift back into the fray when, unexpectedly, a voice rang out, shattering the tension like glass shattering on the floor. Enough! It was a high-ranking officer, his authority unmistakable, cutting through the chaos. Daniel's heart stopped. What would come next? Would this officer ally with the people, or would he lead them back into the shadows? As the crowd quieted, all eyes fixated on the officer, hope hung in the air, suspended by a delicate thread. Would this be the moment they were waiting for? The officer remained silent for a moment, examining the crowd. His expression was unreadable, making hearts pound like war drums. Daniel locked eyes with Clara, who mirrored his anxiety. It felt like electricity coursing through the air. Listen, the officer finally spoke, his voice breaking firmly through the tension. I understand your frustrations. I want to hear you. But we can't have chaos. We need to talk. Whispers rippled through the crowd, some filled with hope, others uncertain. Would the officer truly listen, or was this just another ploy? Daniel felt the weight of their resolve pressing against him. Clara's grip on his hand tightened, urging him to take a step forward. Talk. Ryan scoffed, stepping out defiantly. We've been talking for years. Words don't change a damn thing. Ryan, don't, Daniel warned, stepping between him and the officer. The last thing they needed was more confrontation. The officer's gaze landed on Daniel, and for a brief moment, there was a flicker of recognition. And you're the one rallying everyone, right? Yeah, Daniel replied, his confidence wavering under the scrutiny. We're tired of waiting. We want change. This isn't just about us anymore. It's about everyone who has struggled under this system. System? The officer frowned slightly, almost thoughtfully. What you feel is real. You deserve to be seen and heard. But we have procedures. You can't just march into chaos. Daniel took a deep breath, trying to channel the strength of the voices around him. Then let us march toward solutions. We're not looking for chaos. We're looking for justice. The crowd erupted in supportive roars, a resounding echo of agreement. Daniel's heart raced, there was power in those words. He swallowed hard, surging forward. Talk to us, let us discuss what real change looks like. We need you on our side. The officer's eyes softened momentarily, a hint of understanding shining through the anger. "What do you propose?" Before Daniel could answer, Clara shouted, "Let us organize a meeting. Bring the community leaders, let us lay everything out. We are a voice, a united front." Ryan fumed, his expression flickering between fury and indecision. "This is weak, don't give them what they want. We won to be weak by asking for what we deserve." Clara shot back, her eyes blazing. The crack in Ryan's facade deepened as he struggled against the tide of the crowd, who were rallying in support of her words. Daniel saw the officer's shoulders relax just a fraction. "All right, we need something concrete. A meeting where and when?" "Here. Right now. As soon as we can gather everyone," Clara asserted, her voice resolute. "Fine," the officer replied, a reluctant acceptance in his tone. "But only if you all promise to remain peaceful. I can't have this turning into something more dangerous." The crowd erupted again, cheers mingling with shouts of agreement. Daniel felt the swell of hope rising, but a part of him remained uneasy. They were on the cusp of something monumental, but the fragility of this moment hung heavily in the air. He knew they had to tread carefully. Ryan, pale and trembling with repressed rage, backed down reluctantly, stepping into a shadow at the edge of the gathering. With the police officer stepping aside, he couldn't hold on to control anymore. "Will this be enough?" Daniel whispered to Clara, though he hoped he already knew the answer. "We can start here," she replied, determination shining in her eyes as they pulled together their community once more. "This is just the beginning." Just as the group began to settle into the purpose of dialogue, a piercing scream shattered the hopeful atmosphere. "They're coming back!" A young woman cried, pointing toward an oncoming squad of police, this time with shields raised and determined faces. Daniel's heart plunged. Would their moment of unity be crushed in an instant? Would this confrontation push them back into silence? As the first clang of shields hitting the ground echoed through the air, Daniel felt the crowd hold its breath, caught between fear and defiance. Would courage still hold, or was this the moment everything fell apart? The air crackled with tension, each heartbeat punctuated by the ominous approach of the armored officers. Daniel held his breath, scanning the crowd, searching for courage in the eyes of his neighbors. They were struggling, their faces a mix of fear and defiance. Clara stood beside him, anchored by her unwavering belief. "They can't break us," she whispered, so low only he could hear. The officers formed a line, shields gleaming in the sunlight, their presence stark against the vibrant colors of the crowd. Daniel felt the weight of uncertainty pressing down. Would their hard-fought moment of dialogue be swallowed whole by fear? "Stay calm," he shouted, his voice clear and strong. "We have a right to be here, to talk, to be heard." At his call, Clara squeezed his hand tighter, encouraging him, while others echoed his sentiment. Quickly, people began to chant, "No justice, no peace." Their voices swelled, a defiant wave crashing against the cold steel of authority. The officer at the front, a heavy-set man with sharp features, stepped forward. "Back away," he ordered, his voice cold as ice. "This is not a safe space for confrontation." "Safe for whom?" Ryan bellowed, anger spilling over as if it had been bottled too long. The crowd murmured, a ripple of agreement passing through them. Daniel felt the tension rise, poised on a knife's edge. "Don't let them intimidate us," Clara yelled, stepping closer to the line of officers. Her bravery radiated like a beacon in the gloom. "We're not going anywhere until our voices are heard." Ryan nodded, charging forward. "You think you can just push us back? This is our community. We have a right to stand here. Make sure to keep your distance." The officer barked back, a crack of warning in his tone. The crowd held their ground, hearts beating as one. They had fought too long to be silenced now. Daniel stepped forward, feeling the heat of righteous anger seep into his bones. "We're not a mob. We're a movement. We deserve to have a conversation." The line of officers wavered slightly. Daniel caught the slightest flicker of doubt in the heavy-set officer's eyes. Could they be swayed? Could he finally see the person behind the badge, the humanity beneath the uniform? Is this what you want? The officer said. For me to call the lines in? For this to turn violent? No. Daniel responded, raising his hands to show peace, trying to ease the tension while the crowd behind him screamed for their rights. We're asking for change, not conflict. As the officer pondered, Daniel saw the crowd begin to rise, an undeniable force, united and fierce. Above them, voices soared, mingling in a plea for equilibrium. But without warning, a loud bang echoed through the air, a flash bang, bright and blinding. Confusion erupted, and in the chaos, people began to scream and back away. Stay together. Clara cried as someone stumbled. The crowd rippled like water, panic spreading, but Daniel pushed against it. He wouldn't let fear win. Not now, not ever. Clara, hold on. He shouted, but she was lost in the sudden throng of bodies moving frantically away from the line of officers. Daniel's heart raced. He needed to get to her, to protect her. It felt like time stretched and snapped all in an instant. Amidst the chaos, he caught sight of Ryan, fighting his way through the crowd. Fear twisted in Daniel's gut. This moment wasn't just about a meeting anymore, it had transformed into a struggle for safety. Where is she? He demanded, scanning faces in the whirlwind. In that moment of confusion, he knew the stakes had risen higher than he ever imagined. And as the chaos unfolded, a breathless thought anchored in his mind: was this fight worth every bit of fear, pain, and courage? Would they emerge behind the curtain of noise ready for change, or would they be swallowed whole by the darkness lurking just out of sight? The flash of the bang rang in Daniel's ears, a deafening reminder of chaos as his world blurred around him. He pushed against the tide of bodies, desperate for a glimpse of Clara. She had been his anchor, her conviction unyielding, but in a moment, she was lost. Clara! He yelled again, over the cacophony of screams and feet pounding against the pavement. His heart thudded in his chest, fierce and primal. Each shout from the crowd reminded him just how fragile this moment was. Ryan, a few steps away, managed to grab Daniel's arm. We need to regroup. He shouted, scanning the movement of terrified faces around them. Get back. Find the others. Daniel shook off Ryan's grip, determination etched deep on his face. I can't leave her. Do you want to get trampled? Ryan's voice cut through the noise, but Daniel barely heard it, focused on the swirling sea of humanity that kept pulling him away from her. A surge of bodies pushed against him, but he steadied himself, drawing on the strength of the crowd around him. Each person had a story, a reason for their presence, just as he had. They were fighting for community, for justice, just like Clara had always said. A new roar erupted, another wave of emotion, rallying around him. Stand firm. Someone shouted nearby, and their voices fused into one resolute desire. The heavy-set officer advanced slightly. The fear that surged in Daniel's chest transformed into a hot swell of defiance. We're not afraid. He bellowed into the chaos, feeling the truth of his words ignite a fire in the crowd. As if sensing the shift, the officer hesitated, his grip on authority flickering momentarily. They were outnumbered, the love and strength of the community were pushing against the rigid walls of the law. Please, we just want to talk. A woman cried from the back, her voice trembling yet unwavering. Let us be heard. Suddenly, a sliver of movement caught Daniel's eye. Through the haze, he spotted Clara, trying to weave her way back toward him, hand outstretched as if reaching for a distant star. Relief washed over him, momentarily brightening the shadows of panic that threatened to swallow him whole. Clara! He darted toward her, his pulse racing, the noise of the crowd fading into the background. Her face was flushed, eyes wide with fear, but determination was etched across her features. The moment felt surreal, a connection that pulled him to her with an undeniable force. "Daniel!" She gasped as their hands grasped each other firmly. But even in that moment of solidarity, the cacophony roared back to life. The armored officers shifted, their shields glinting ominously, and Daniel felt the air thicken with renewed tension. "What do we do now?" Clara's voice trembled but was resolute. "We stand together." He tightened his grip around her hand. "We fight for our voices. We won't let them drown us out." As a gust of wind swept through, carrying their shared resolve, Daniel felt something shift inside him. It was as if fear transformed into fire, igniting a determination that propelled him forward. The crowd stirred with renewed energy, together they shouted, louder and stronger. "No justice, no peace." Somewhere at the edge of the crowd, a figure loomed, the heavy-set officer, watching, calculating. What would he decide? Would his heart allow room for understanding, for change? With Clara by his side, Daniel realized they held more than just a banner of protest, they carried hope, a fierce desire to create a future where voices weren't just heard, but valued. And as they pressed forward, Daniel felt the exhilarating thrill of possibility wash over him. They were not just fighting against something, they were fighting for something greater than fear. But amidst this moment of strength, a sharp sound broke through the air again. A different kind of urgency. A warning. What would happen next? The deafening noise sliced through the crowd like a knife, causing everyone to freeze in place. The air was thick with uncertainty as the police officers tightened their formations, shifting closer together. Daniel's heart raced, racing against the clock of this intensified moment. "Clara, stay close," he urged, gripping her hand tightly. As the crowd surged in all directions, he could feel the pulse of fear and defiance mingling in the atmosphere. "Daniel, what is going to happen now?" Clara's voice shook, but there was an underlying strength. She sought reassurance in his gaze. He took a deep breath, grounding himself as adrenaline coursed through his veins. "We keep standing up. Together. We're not backing down," he murmured, his resolve hardening. The heavy-set officer stepped forward again, his expression unreadable yet filled with a mix of authority and hesitation. "Everyone, this is your last warning. We will take action if you don't disperse." A murmur of protests erupted from the crowd. "We won't back down," someone shouted. Daniel felt the stirrings of community spirit flood him with hope. "Daniel!" Clara whispered, her eyes darting nervously around. He turned to see her staring intently past the officer. "What is it?" he asked, following her gaze. Emerging through the throng was Old Man Bennett, the once wise voice of hope, now navigating the chaos with deliberate purpose. There was something in his stride that drew attention, a quiet determination that radiated authority. He had seen enough. "Let me speak." Bennett's voice rose above the noise, commanding the crowd to hush. They turned as if sensing the gravity of this moment. "Listen," he continued, addressing both the crowd and the officers. "This community is tired. We've lived under fear for too long, and we've had enough. Playing against our lives for power has to stop." The officer's gaze shifted to Bennett, considering his words as the crowd held its breath. Daniel felt Clara's fingers tighten around his, a shared pulse of hope and fear. "Justice isn't a game," Bennett continued, his voice steady and unwavering. "We are here not to create chaos but to find unity and resolution." As the murmurs quieted, Daniel sensed the scale begin to tip. If they could harness this moment deeply, they might just compel the officers to listen. "Let us gather, and we can present our grievances. You, all of you, have seen how we struggle against fear and intimidation," Bennett implored, eyeing the heavy-set officer, who stood at a crossroads of choice. "Okay," the officer finally relented, the wall behind him feeling a touch more flexible. "Let us hear you out. We can arrange a meeting. But it has to remain peaceful." Cheers erupted from the crowd, a rush of relief and triumph washing through them. Clara smiled at Daniel, her eyes shining brighter than he had ever seen. In that moment, it felt like a collective sigh of relief surged through them, a united deep breath after holding it for far too long. But beneath that sense of hope, Daniel's gut twisted. This fragile victory came with uncertainty. What if things didn't change? What if the meeting led to nothing? As the crowd began to settle, the officer instructed them to form a line, establishing order among the chaos. Daniel squeezed Clara's hand, feeling their hearts entwining in their shared fight. Together, he whispered. Yes, together, Clara smiled, her courage bubbling to the surface. As they lined up, awaiting their turn to speak, an unexpected feeling settled in Daniel's chest, something he hadn't felt in so long. It was warmth, hope, and connection. They fought not just for their voices, but for justice and dignity for everyone in their community. It's time to change the narrative, he spoke softly to Clara, the weight of his heart finally beginning to ease as he turned to face the fray ahead. As they waited to address the officers, families and friends rallied at their sides, fortifying their resolve. No longer faceless, the community gleamed together as a tapestry of strength and spirit. And when it was finally their turn to speak, Daniel felt Clara's steady gaze on him, the warmth nourishing courage. This was not just a fight for singular voices, it was a fight for family, for dreams, and for hope, a symphony of humanity seeking to be seen. Together, he repeated, and now with Clara's heart beside his, he stepped forward into the future. In that moment, they transformed from helpless victims to proud advocates, ready to face whatever challenges came their way. This wasn't just a dance in a dimly lit room anymore, this was life, raw and real. They stood together against the shadows and emerged as a beacon of hope, proudly declaring, "No longer shall we be divided. This community rises as one." And in that awakening, the world shifted ever so slightly, allowing the light to shine through the cracks of despair. The battle wasn't over, but it had turned a page, a resonating message of unity had been sent out. They would continue to fight, together, until justice was no longer a distant dream but a palpable reality for all. Now was the moment to celebrate this transformation. You need to subscribe now to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories that will inspire and uplift. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help others find this message of hope. Comment below with your reactions and feelings about this ending. Your voice matters, let us know what you're thinking. Don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Let us spread hope and unity together.